Hello, and welcome to the SEO plus AI show. My name is Josh Bashinsky, and with me I have my co-host, Greg Bassani. Say hi there, Greg.
Hello, folks.
If you've never seen the SEO plus AI show before, we talk about, as you might have guessed, SEO and AI. We talk about these things together. And today we're going to be looking at a couple different things, not the least of which is Surfer. Surfer is an SEO tool that is very popular. A lot of people use it. And we're going to take a look at it and give a bit of a review of how it works and what we see there. So Greg is made a little presentation of Surfer and to talk about it and to talk about the different features and things that it has there. And so, Greg, why don't you take it away and start talking about Surfer? So the question is, what is going on with Surfer? Is it a good tool? Is it a bad tool? A lot of people like it, but should they, is the question. So we're going to take a look at this and tell you what we think. So It looks like we're looking at the keyword Vega protein bars.
That's the keyword, Vega protein bars. And I just have it up in Surfer as well as our tool.
Okay, great.
So I just wanted to go through some of the key aspects. In full disclosure, I have a content writing agency which has used this for years and years, that being Surfer. And we recently switched over to Keyword Spy, naturally, since it's a tool that I built with Josh, because it just works better and does a lot more things that help people rank, help our clients rank. So just wanted to go through this and show you what Surfer does. If you're not aware of Surfer, if you are, then you'll know most of the features and what maybe people are using the tool for. Most writers, who are using this are focused in on the content score. That content score is mainly, if I click on details here, it's mainly made up between the terms and the NLP words that Surfer suggests over here on the right, and they indicate what's been used appropriately versus not enough, or maybe just a little shy, with green, red, yellow. And so this score is really basically just looking at these NLP words that they have, I presume, got from an open source NLP that they think Google uses, which, Josh will probably talk more about this later, that they do not.
Yes, I will rant on this a little later, yes.
And so you can see the score with the terms in the NLP being a 50% weight. Their headings, they look at their headings individually in the document and use the NLP words essentially to rank those as well. So it's very, very heavy focused on the NLP word usage in the headings and in the content. And then lastly, the structure, which is basically how many words you're using, headings, paragraphs, images. So that is the general, I guess, definition. And they have a link, which I followed and looked at. It's right here in their content score that defines what this is. So there's not a lot of science behind this. It's not very sophisticated, but this is what millions of people use and go by. And so we're here to show you that although it's a pretty good metric, I'm not saying the NLP is the worst thing in the world. We actually use it a little bit in our app, but it's far inferior to what we're doing in Keyword Spy. So Josh, any initial comments on their content score or any questions? Or
Yeah, do they have an over optimization as well in that dial there?
No, they do not. So you can basically get to 100 and it stops there. I don't think if you kept jamming in words, it would go to 101 or 102 or anything like that, which that's another, I think, benefit of our tool that actually we'll showcase in a little bit, that being over optimized is just as bad, maybe worse than being under optimized. So this tool definitely doesn't account for that. And
yeah, that's too bad, because in Underground SEO University, we found that there is over optimization, and you have to be very, very careful. It's super easy to go over optimized. And I noticed they do have an average there, 72 and top 83, but nowhere in there did it say you really shouldn't go over optimized. So that's what we wanted to avoid in our tool, Keyword Spy. And we're not going to talk about Keyword Spy too much. This is more going to be about Surfer, but we are going to compare and contrast because in our opinion, there's a wrong way to do it and a right way to do it. We're going to show how they do it right and how they do it wrong, and and that kind of thing. Try to have a semi-balanced review of it. But at the end of the day, full disclosure, if we liked Surfer, we'd be using it. So there's some things about it which we think are really, really bad, like what I'm saying here, which is, again, this over optimization thing. There's no warning for over optimization on this dial, which is really dangerous for people. The other thing that I would mention, James says in the chat about Surfer, he says Surfer does a job to a point, but within a very tight set of parameters, so it doesn't hit the bullseye, which I find interesting. So anyone out there who has any SEO questions, go ahead and ask any SEO questions in the chat that you want. Also, tell me, how good are your rankings with Surfer? For those of you who use Surfer, tell me how many times you hit number 1 in Google, because number 1 is the only thing in Google, ranking number 1 or position 1 or position 0 even of the featured snippet. That's what you should be aiming for SEO. So tell me who can get position 1 with Surfer. As your on page, and obviously you're gonna have to do some other stuff as well. With using Surfer as your on page tool, how many people out there get number 1? Let me know in the comments here live, and also let me know in the comments in the video later on below. Let me know who can get number 1 with Surfer. I'd like to know. And there's this score here that clearly is on the right-hand side. It's very prominent. And so people will be chasing this score like crazy. If you scroll up there for a second, yeah, that score there, everyone's gonna be chasing this score, right? So the problem with that, and this is what we're trying to not do in our tool, is that chasing this score is maybe not the best idea, because it's only an NLP, an open source NLP, that at the end of the day, now if you scroll down, Greg, all those entities that it says you should be adding, like all of these, Vega protein bars and brown rice protein and all these different things, there's no reason to believe that these keywords, however they got these keywords, are actually the keywords that Google is looking for. And so they can assign points to these words as much as they want. It's not going to necessarily help you rank in Google. In fact, it could take you out of the rankings in Google by either being off topic, because these metonyms are not actually the proper entity metonyms you're supposed to use. In Keyword Spy, we test for 5 different on-page AIs that we know for a fact Google is using, because they said so publicly. They're using neural matching, they're using BERT, they're using RankBrain. Those are the 3 main on-page AIs, which each have their own entities and extract natural language in different ways. Then they have the helpful content transformer, and they have the product content transformer. Also, they probably have an EAT, an experience, expertise, authority, and trust transformer, which is trying to read the content and try to determine whether you have the experience, the expertise, whether you're helpful, whether you have the right synonyms and metonyms, whether you have the right depth of those keywords, and whether you have the right spread of those keywords. And so also in here, I don't see, now correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but does Surfer have any kind of count of using spread keywords at all?
Don't know. I don't think so.
So I see there's numbers beside those terms. So I'm presuming that that's what those numbers mean, is that, yeah, you've used 7 of these and you're supposed to use it 2 to 6 times. Oh, okay. So they have a spread mechanism in here. Okay, fair enough. And they're like, you should be using these only 2 to 6. Now that's another thing. That's another mistake in the SEO industry. They're guessing based on your competition that your competition says Vega protein bar. So this is how Surfer works. They analyze your competition and see what your competition is using. And then they take that content, they run it through an open source NLP. The open source NLP picks out how many times they're using specific entities. An entity is a concept or an idea. So it could be a single word, it could be a phrase, right? So the idea of Vega protein bars, which in this case is the EMQ, or brown rice protein, or the idea of organic agave syrup. These ideas or entities are used X number of times by your competitors. And so that's all Surfer does, is they analyze how many times your competitors are using these keywords, and then the range in which they are using them on average. And then they presume you're going to be okay if you match their keyword usage. If you match their entity usage, if you match their keyword usage, they presume you're going to be okay. And you might be like, well, Josh, what's wrong with that? The problem is if you're matching your competitors, then you can never beat your competitors. If all you're doing is taking a range, and you're not even matching the best one, you're taking a range of all of them because they don't know which one's the best one. Because the people who make Surfer, I'm sure they're wonderful human beings. I don't mean to slag off any human beings, but in terms of the professionalism in this tool, I have to call it to account. Because one, all you're doing is matching the other competitors, which is not a way to get ahead of your competitors with your own page. And you're not even matching the best one because they don't know what the best one is. You're matching a range, which is going to water you down, right? There is actually no proof whatsoever, as we've tested in Underground University, that you can't use certain words 100 times, 300 times. Some words are going to be used hundreds of times in the content. For an article, Vega protein bars, you're going to say the word protein 100 times, 200 times, whatever it is. So these kinds of ideas that you have to stuff in these NLP entities, that one, were extracted by an AI that is not the one that Google is using, and two, is only going to be as good as what your competitors have said. That means there's no way for you to innovate and say something new or different. And that's not how the Google AIs work. It's actually quite interesting. The Google natural language processing AIs, all 5 of them, they work on a vector idea, where it is, for example, neural matching sees the sentiment, for example, as positive. And there's a vector of semantic, right? Vectors means like a line, like imagine like a line graph of meaning going out from a central idea and going out to different ideas. So for example, you could say Vega protein bars are okay, Vega protein bars are pretty good, Vega protein bars are good, Vega protein bars are very good, Vega protein bars are excellent, Vega protein bars are perfect. That's a vector of an idea of good, right? From not so good to as good as it gets. People don't realize that is one way you can get ahead of your competition, is by having the vector words, is by knowing all these different metonyms, and specifically the neural matching algorithm is what does this. And also BERT does this to a small degree as well. Knowing the vector of these keywords, and also vector embedding does this too, knowing all the vector keywords that are going to actually get you ahead of the competition. This relates to what Google talks about, of knowing what you want before you know it. Or this is how they determine what you're searching for without you realizing you're searching for it. They know the vector, the general idea, the direction you're going, so to speak, to use an almost perfect metaphor, the direction you're going semantically, like metaphorically in terms of meaning. They know the direction you're going, they know the direction you're headed, and they literally boost pages that go in that direction more. So if all you're doing is miring yourself, it's actually pretty interesting. So if all you're doing is anchoring yourself to what everyone else has said, then you think you're safe, but you're not. You're not safe at all, because you're just a watered down version of something that Google has already seen. They have another thing in the industry that's been in here forever called QDD, which stands for Query Deserves Diversity. They're looking for a diverse range of expression, a diverse range of focus, a diverse range of covering the spread of these particular ideas. And that's where spread keywords come into play, and our particular vector keywords come into play. And when we talk about depth and spread in Keyword Spy, not only we're talking about depth and spread in the way the actual AIs look at them, so that you can get the right spread of keywords. So that they have a spread idea here, which a lot of people do, but they're not getting you the right spread of vector keywords in 2 different ways. One, they're only lifting it from the competition, and 2, they're not actually reverse engineering or doing any modeling that we can see anyway. They're not doing any reverse engineering or modeling of the actual AIs that Google has used by checking their white papers or the patents and downloading the open source versions and making actual models for you, which is why our testing takes longer in Keyword Spy, because we actually have to build a model for you and run it to see what your vectorization is going to be and how your neural network is going to be built. We build a neural network for you, and we flesh that out. That has to be done, otherwise there's no way you can know what the Google keywords are going to be. You're just going to be making wild guesses based on any old NLP, which, every different company has different NLPs. Bing has a different NLP. ChatGPT OpenAI has like 5 different NLPs. There's different open source NLPs, which are very, very weak and nothing compared to the robust AIs, the robust large language models, the LLMs, that any of these big tech companies are using, most especially Google. So it's actually super interesting what's going on here. Let's see if there's any questions in the chat here. Inquire Digital says, I ranked multiple keywords for number 1 using only a TF-IDF analysis tool, considering the first 20 results. Keywords should be spread naturally. Agreed. Yeah, So TF-IDF stands for term frequency inverse document frequency. And that is a type of vectorization for sure. And so that is one of the AIs that Google is using for sure. So it's not quite TF-IDF, it's collocated vectorization, which has more to do about neural networking and the grammatical analysis of the sentence. TF-IDF is just term frequency inverse document frequency for the entire document. So using TF-IDF or LSI as well, you're going to, LSI is a little bit worse, TF-IDF is a little bit better, collocation, vectorization is a little bit better, and then adding on the 5 AIs on top of that will be perfect. Yeah, I'm not surprised, Inquire Digital, that using TF-IDF, you got some number 1 rankings from that. I bet you it was on keywords that were pretty weak, and I bet you on pretty long tail keywords, where the longer the EMQ is, the more hooks you have, so to speak, to allow TF-IDF to work for you. So I find that interesting. I would humbly suggest that you're going to get even better results if you actually look at the actual 5 AIs that Google is actually ranking pages by, that they've publicly admitted this. They use RankBrain, BERT, which is bidirectional encoder representations from transformer, neural matching, which is a neural networking grammatical metonym replacement algorithm or AI. They use the helpful content, the product content, and EAT. You could add EAT into helpful content, and I do. There could be 6 of them. I think there's 5 of them. We think that help and product content are being analyzed by T5 or the PaLM large language model, which has a 32,000 token size limit. So that allows them to feed in documents which are like what? What's half of 32? 16,000 words roughly. They can take in a web page that's roughly 16,000 words and analyze the entire thing to see how helpful it is, to see if you have experience, expertise, authority, and trust in an entity vector, what we call entity vector, in that document, so that you're linking out to what the other consensus of experts talks about. And they check to see you have the right product information. And those are all based on those suggestions that they talked about. I'll be putting out a video very soon about how we would use that in Keyword Spy and how you would boost your pages using that. Inquire Digital says, if someone optimizes all keywords in a single paragraph, that doesn't work. Yes, yeah, you're right. Keywords should be optimized throughout the content. Yes. You need to have the right topicality. You need to have just the right amount of words, just the right amount of frequency of depth of words going on the right vector to beat your competition, not match them. But you need to be in variance for other things. And you need to have the right spread as well to beat them and not match them. And Inquire Digital actually confirms, thank you for being honest, thank you for interacting. He says, some were short keywords, but low competition. Agreed. Yes. So do you see how, and that's a perfect example, thanks. That's a perfect example of how, if you just catch little pieces of how SEO works, like Surfer is, you can get some good results some of the time. It's all about increasing that percentage, that statistical percentage of getting mostly good results most of the time. And you can outrank people doing off-page with just your on-page if you do it right. If you're doing your on-page correctly, and you're taking account of all these 5 AIs, plus the vectorization, and plus the entity vector, and plus the EAT, if you take account all these keywords that are supposed to be going, and that's all on-page I'm talking about, right? If all of that on-page goes into your page, we can hit page number 1 from nowhere, right? By doing that, we can go from nowhere, not even being on the SERP, the page didn't exist, to going right onto page number 1, and then we just get spot number 1 from there. So it's super interesting, the differences between these different tools. So Greg, what do you think about what's been said? What else does Surfer do here? Is there anything else interesting that they do?
Yeah, a couple other things I wanted to point out. Looking at like their headers and their suggestions for headers, we are similar in what they recommend, which is an EMQ in the H1. So we are on par with them on that, and but where we differ is the subheadings, and it looks like they care less about stuffing PMQs, partial match, or definitely exact match. Nothing that they recommend and say it's good or bad. If they lean on the side of more of adding more partial match and exact match in subheadings, whereas our tool will take a look at your competition and see if it's quote unquote safe to do that. Yes. I think that's a better way, better strategy.
That's that. Okay, so that's a huge red flag for me. As you know, Greg, in our testing, and we couldn't believe this, but there are serious over-optimization penalties out there, not the least of which is stuffing in EMQs too many times. Sadly, Surfer is doing a big disservice to their customer base. in that there's huge boat anchors here, that some things might boost people slightly, but some of these things are going to hold people back. And you can't have any boat anchors, like trying to rank at Google is running a race. How quickly, can you finish this 100-meter dash if you have weights tied to your ankles? The answer is not very quick, right? So you could be really good in some regards, but if you have these boat anchors attached to you, you're not going to be able to be number one very easily. You're going to have to spend more money on links or whatever it is to do your off page, and to get to number one, if you can even get there. And then you're going to be sick, right? It's also like a sickness kind of idea where poor immune system, they might be able to survive in society, but they're the ones, if anything happens in society, they're the ones who are going to be hit first. It's like being the very, very young or the very, very old in like terms of ecology. People who have problems with their SEO are going to be the ones who are going to be hit first. In these core updates we see, which seem to be happening like every month, people who have boat anchors in their SEO and already have problems in their SEO, because like let's say the score to rank number one is you need 700 total points in Google's system, and so you've got 701 points in total. Your positive points are 1,000, but then you have like a minus 299 boat anchor points. Google can increase the demotion from those boat anchor points at any time, thus pushing you under the limit relative to everybody else. And you'll never know. You'll go crazy looking at your backlinks and don't know that you stuffed the EMQ in the page too many times in different places. So yeah, that's why in Keyword Spy, we get really into the document object model. And we show you, okay, here's the machine learning variants of the document object model of what people have done in your niche, and the crazy, silly, weird HTML they've used for whatever reason, because they're all on Joomla, or they're all on WordPress, or they're all on Wix, or they just have weird designers using weird templates and themes that have weird HTML. And for some reason, now it's not great HTML, but it's doing the job, but nobody ever looks at their HTML, so nobody knows. And now you are getting demoted because you don't have crazy, silly HTML, right? And that also includes what keywords can go for RankBrain, especially what keywords can go in what tags, in what variants, and in what strength, and in what spread. So all of this has to be taken into account. And I only see Surfer doing like half of this, and sadly not protecting its user base in not warning them about over-optimization in general, or over-optimization in specific spots, the way that we have built into Keyword Spy. I have to admit, if I'm being perfectly honest, that rubs me the wrong way. That doesn't look very good there personally for Surfer.
Okay, well, you touched on the DOM vector a little bit. I was just going to point out that they do recommend these header usage and paragraph and image, and that's the extent of the structure, quote unquote.
Okay, but what headers? H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. There's 6 different header tags. Which one?
It doesn't break down at all, actually.
Okay. Yeah. So which one, in which variants, what level of keywords are you allowed to put there? How many are you allowed to put there? That is where you can get some pretty severe over-optimization penalties there. And also then all the rest of the HTML. Use strong tags, bold tags, I tags, EM tags, tables, iframes, a lot of forms, a lot of SVG being used in the back end for some reason. People who don't know HTML have no idea what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking another language. But people who do know HTML, you should know what I'm talking about here. And then also the attribution matters. Class attributes, ID attributes, alt attributes on images, are they being used or not? What keyword usage is being used in there? All of this matters tremendously for ranking. And if you get it wrong, there could be a big problem. So in Keyword Spy, we're building out tools, and we already show you the entire DOM and show you what everyone else is using. And you could choose whatever winners you want to go by. You want to go by this, you want to look like this page or that page. You could choose them manually, or you could choose multiple pages and see the aggregate. And we're going to build in artificial intelligence. Now that GPT-4 is out, it's smart enough now to take that information and start producing HTML with it. I'm going to put out another video how I did that manually, and then we're going to build that into Keyword Spy as well. But at least we do the document object model, and we should at least show you the report of all the things you can do with it in JSON. If you check the tutorials, I show you how to put it in the JSON viewer, and you can view it, you can check to see the attributes, you can make notes in your content brief and things like that. So yeah, so that's unfortunate there too. That Surfer is there's a missed opportunity that Surfer is missing there to do all that. But again, if you're not a member of Underground SEO University, you would never know. You would never know that this has all been proven scientifically to be ranking factors that you need to take account of.
Okay, very good. So just before I move on to that other tab outline, we'll point out that they do similarly how we look at the top 10 word counts of the competitor page and do an average. We similarly do that. So I do want to point that out, that's something that, sort of our tool systems work in the same way. But other than that, I mean, they have some AI writing tools, which is over in the outline, allows you to take a look. It writes it. It's plagiarism free. And they recommend to adding it to as an H1 and then the paragraph text underneath. So
okay, so hold on. So let's take a look at this.
Oh, sure.
Let's look at the words they generated here. Vega protein bars, vegan dream snack, or overrated fake food. Nutritionist reacts. Okay. Guys, what do you think about that? That's supposed to be the H1 at the top, I presume, and that's not the title tag. They think
it's the H1.
That's supposed to be the H1. Okay, yeah. That seemed fair. That's the H1. What do you guys think? Is that a good H1? Dream snack or overrated fake food? A nutritionist reacts. I have certain opinions about that. What do you guys think in the chat? Let me know. There's about a 20-second delay, so you guys will have to take some time to think about that. Also, let's look at the sentence, the paragraph here. The name translates to the vegan bar. There are many bars, period. Are Vega bars a great way to keep a healthy lifestyle that is rewarded by bringing in some money? Okay, so I'm just going to say that's terrible AI generated content. That's awful. There are many bars, period. That's okay. This is really, really bad. This is really, really not good AI generated content.
I didn't read this either. I didn't ever suspect it to be that bad. I mean, that's...
Wow. Okay. So obviously this is unusable AI generated content. And I can tell why, because in Keyword Spy, we need to use like a 4-stage process to generate the absolute best next generation AI content, which is hitting every mark you need to hit. The depth of the keywords, the vector of the keywords, the spread of the keywords, the predictability of the content is as low as possible. We get very close to the SERP average. The average predictability length, which they're not even generating here, of your sentence is always on the low side. The worst offender predictability length that they don't even calculate here, and we calculate in Keyword Spy, is always on the low side. And the word count. And we're usually better in terms of the tone. If you went with this H1, then now you're going to have to be a nutritionist, whether you are or not, and you need to react to it. This is a very clickbait kind of H1, but it's not a good H1. This is not what you would normally do for SEO content. This is not typically what you would write. So Jeremy says, Surfer AI is pretty horrendous. Not sure when they will update it. Barat says, they might be spinning ChatGPT content to pass through the AI detector. Yeah, that's a good question there, Barat and Jeremy. So Jeremy, they can update it now. There are far better services out there already, including ours, that does this better. So the engineering of this, I have to admit, is not pretty good. So they spin it. So it's pretty unpredictable, but it's terrible.
It reads terrible, but it's from an AI predictability standpoint, it actually scores pretty good.
Okay, now I'm about to go on a deep dive on how you detect AI content. There's many different statistical models for detecting AI content. In my opinion, the best AI model for detecting AI content is the one that we use, the GLTR method, which is what you're seeing on your screen right here, which will check the top 10 tokens, which is the green, the top 100 tokens, which is the yellow, the top 1,000 tokens, which is whatever that is, a pink or a mauve, I can't tell, and then anything above 1,000. The average predictability length there of 3.24 is in tokens, which is really low. That's really good. There's always a double-edged sword or a multi-edged sword in AI content. This is the premier way of detecting AI content and the way that Google's probably going to detect it. Because the statistical odds of you getting one of the top 10 tokens out of literally a trillion different tokens that could be used is like 0.000 repeating many times 1%. To do it 3 times, never mind 6 times like we see in poorly generated AI content. So in order to beat that and not have an average predictability length that is too high, they've probably done what Barat said here, and they've spun the content. but they've spun it terribly. And Google has put out, I'm not lying, I'll show you the papers. Google has put out white papers that the other way of detecting AI content is to detect spun content. In fact, they've been detecting spun content long before AI content, long before transformer generated content or LLM generated content, which does a much better job of almost always being grammatical and almost always being proper spelling. So this is not the way to do it. This is obviously terrible content that will just as easily be detected by Google because it's clearly spun. They have different metrics. Now, why don't we have that metric in Keyword Spy? Because we don't recommend you use spun content. There's many different ways to detect AI content, and I give Surfer a kind of partial nubby thumb up in not being so predictable in the GLTR method. But that means now they're super predictable in the spun method, and this is going to demote their customer base. This is going to hurt their users, which is kind of an unfortunate thing there. That's not a really good thing. As Greg knows, and also we know people at Content Scale. We know a lot of people, a lot of players in this niche of what's going on. Generating a good AI content is difficult. Anyone can go to ChatGPT and just generate content with just write me an article about Vega protein bars. That's not going to be good enough to be helpful. That's not good enough for depth. That's not going to have the spread. That's not going to have, and that predictability is going to be through the roof, right? So that's not what you're going to want to see. And the readability is not going to be what you want either. And the word count might not be what you want either. And the headings aren't going to be what you want. So it's got to be a multi-step process. It's much more complex. In Keyword Spy, I got some videos coming out and showing you how we're doing it behind the scenes, and then that'll be it. And we're building it into Keyword Spy as well. So you've got to take a multi-stage approach. I won't go through the whole thing now because we're almost at the end of the show. It'll take too long, but there's got to be a multi-stage approach. And sadly, that spun method they used there, I have to admit, I have to give Surfer an F and a failing grade on that one. Jeremy says, will you be covering Koala AI tool in the future video? It's incredibly impressive. Would love to see you break it down. Sure. I've never heard of it, but sure, we can check out Koala AI tool and we can give you our best breakdown on what's going on. So yeah, so as we saw before, it's got a little bit of depth, but let's go down here to content.
Hold on one second. I got to put back the original article. I was just trying something out.
Yeah. So actually on this section of text, it's not really a fair competition, but this would be the first paragraph. So let's compare their first paragraph to our first paragraph. So let's scroll down here to content. And let's go to entities. And let's check the work. And let's sort by score. Okay, so we've got 2, 2, 1, and then a bunch of zeros. Keep scrolling down. Oh, okay, no, they scroll all the way up. It's just like an eyeball of what's going on here.
Sure. Yeah, so these are the words used here.
Okay, so 5, 3, 2, 2, 1. So that's 5, 3, 2, it's 10, 2, 2, it's 13. So they're using 13 words that they should be using at the very, very top. Now let's go back to your article. And look at the first paragraph.
I didn't optimize this article, just so you know. But
okay. And how did you generate it?
It was generated by my team, and they use Surfer. So this was.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let's see. What's the EMQ? Vega protein bars?
Yeah. Let me just insert this header. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So let's check out what Surfer would do in our tool. Let's check the work. And let's go up and look at the, I believe the over-optimization detection, which is all that dial is. All that dial is an over-optimization detector. Yeah, okay, so you're in the green, the apples to apples entity usage. Now let's go down and see here. It is using way too many words.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very high in the predictability of just the top 10 tokens being used.
Yep.
It doesn't have quite enough headings, and we'd have to go to the DOM vector, or we'd have to go to the competitor analysis anyway to find out which ones those are supposed to be.
Yeah, we can.
You could check them there. Yeah, so it should have 1H1, of course, which should be surprising if it was more than that. Which some use exact match, which is interesting. And then 2 H2s. Oh no, 2 partial matches, 4 H2s, 8 and 8 H3s.
But notice how the competition doesn't use exact match at all in hardly anything. So
Yeah, not even the H1. So that's a huge opportunity for you to rank better there because they're not using an H1. They're not using the exact match in the H1.
Yeah.
Not all of them anyway. Only one of them apparently, or two on the cert bar. Okay, and let's go down and check the work, and then sort by score at the very top. Let's
Just the words.
Yeah, the words are fine. Yeah. Actually, let's scroll up. So we're not at the top yet. Let's go all the way to the top.
Sort by score. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so let's scroll down and see how long it takes us to get a 0 in these top scored words. There, 1. So by the time we're not even halfway through the top scored words, we're getting zeros on 20 grams day review, returns. There's some holes. Again, over delivery, product. Yeah, so we don't have enough spread in the top scored words. We don't want to fill in, and now we're down ounces, mint, box, crunchy, crispy. And we got zeros. Yeah, so this is not good enough for the spread, right? So now here's another problem with the way Surfer is using the dial, is that they're not telling you where in the document either things are being used, which would be a good thing to keep in mind, that at the top of the document, you want to be using these words more than at the lower end of the document, if at all possible. Yeah, the issue is that Surfer is not telling you where the document the keywords should be coming from, nor are they telling you what keywords you should be using in the spread that should be higher. For example, let's say you had 1,000 words that are worth 1 point at the bottom of the article. That dial will still go up into their optimized zone for you, even though that's not optimized at all. You want to be adding the spread in the higher rated keywords, not the lower rated keywords. Whereas in Keyword Spy, by using the method that Greg just showed you, and we're going to build in an AI that's going to tell you all this and remind you to do all this. By using the method that Greg just showed you and that I've showed you in the tutorial, you want to sort it by the score. You want to look to see that you're using the highest scored words that are actually scored by the actual AIs that Google is using. And you want to be using those at the top. You don't want to see any zeros at the top of those keywords. You don't want to be stuffing in all the entities you're trying to use at the bottom of those keywords. Ultimately, Greg, what is our ultimate judgment here on Surfer? What is our final grade? What do you have to say about that?
I would say somewhere in the C range. As I said in the beginning of the show, we used it for years. Definitely had some success, like one of the comments. But again, it's in not so hard niches and for not so hard keywords. So the bottom line is it looks great. It's a very nice looking app. It obviously, from a UI UX perspective, it's beyond ours because we're in our infancy.
Right.
We'll be the first ones to admit that. But what's happening in the background is, I think, not even close to what we're doing. So
yeah.
If you care about the data, you care about getting things correct for Google, then
if you care about actually ranking and making your on-page get ahead of your competition and not just match your competition and then not be selected because you're just like them.
Yeah, we didn't get to our rewriter, our sort of quality rewriter tool. We didn't get to plagiarism, copyscape that we have built in. And then obviously you mentioned a little bit about some of the future things that we're looking to do, like writing full articles and grading the content for helpfulness and heat. So, those are to come, but we're meeting every week. So I guess we have plenty time to cover all that. So
yes, a show like this every week, you need lots of stuff to talk about. So that's fine. Just so you guys know, Greg used the acronym HEAT. HEAT is our version of EAT. It's adding in helpfulness, experience, expertise, authority, and trust. You don't need EAT, you need HEAT. Your pages have to have HEAT. They need to be helpful. They need to be more helpful than everybody else. They need to have the experience. They need to have the expertise on the entity vector. You're saying what the experts say and the consensus of experts. You need to have authority and say what the authoritative people are saying. And trust, you need to have the trust signals talking about how you're an expert and stuff like that, just in case people didn't know what the word HEAT meant. It's the same acronym EAT that everyone else uses, but you just add a H for helpfulness on top of it. All right, well, thanks a lot, folks. This has been the SEO AI Show. Tune in next week where we're going to be at our regular time Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific. Make sure to like and subscribe and click the bell so you can get updates as to when we're putting videos out. I'm putting out tons of more tutorials and tons more tips and tricks videos of how to use the most advanced AI tools and crush it with your SEO. Greg, do you have any final comments before we sign off?
No, sir. See you next week.
Awesome. So see you guys next time.